Hi friends, this is Pastor Jamie with Tempe First United Methodist Church, and I have been sharing with you the story behind the hymn. So there are many hymns that are well known and beloved that we sing regularly, but we don't always know about the person who authored them. So today I want to share with you the story behind one of our most well-known hymns. You could probably guess that hymn is Amazing Grace. We hear it in worship, but we also sometimes hear it in secular settings as well, movies, TV, etc. So Amazing Grace was written by John Newton. He was born in London in 1725, and his mom died when he was a young child, at which point his dad remarried, but John's stepmom was having trouble dealing with his behaviors. John was getting a lot of trouble and she just didn't know what to do. So John's dad decided that he would take him to work. John's dad was a sea captain. So John began sailing the seas at age 11. And after many trips, John began to get in trouble. He was heavily drinking and made it difficult to live with on a ship. So John's dad thought that the best place for him might be the British Navy. But John didn't like this idea and he tried to desert. And he was given 8 dozen lashes. It's a lot of lashes. He was in a lot of trouble. And he was demoted just to be a common seaman, just someone who helps out on the ship, but no person of real rank. And John was sailing on slave ships, but his poor behavior continued. Many of his colleagues, people who sailed with him, called his behavior the vilest of the vile. He continued drinking, continued swearing, was just hard to be around, and it wasn't tolerated well. There was even a story about how John was just so out of control that some of the other crew on the ship shackled him like the slaves into the belly of a ship just to help control him, and so they wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. But John, on one of his trips, they were in West Africa, as that was the kind of the hub of slave trade, and the ship captain kicked him off, and John was taken captive in West Africa, and the slave trading crew just left him there. They kicked him off and didn't care to see him ever again. But John's father heard of a story and decided that he needed to send someone to go and to rescue him. So the team of people found John and were bringing him back to England. But as they were sailing on the ship on the way back, the ship hit a great storm, and the boat was taking on water, and everyone on it feared for their lives. It's quite a terrifying event for them. It was that moment that John prayed to God to spare his life. And as John was praying, somehow the cargo on the ship moved, it shifted in front of a hole in the ship, which prevented the ship from taking on more water. And this enabled the ship to be able to sail to land, and everyone on board arrived safely. And John knew in that moment that God had heard his prayers. And John considered that the moment when he first began his Christian journey. And his transformation wasn't immediate, but his transformation over time was pretty stark. And he was receiving God's grace daily and allowed that grace to transform him. It was at this time that John also started reading the Bible and rethinking his views on slavery and whether or not it was moral. But my favorite part of his story is that when John was 39 years old, he was anointed as an Anglican priest. So this man who was immoral, who was heavily drinking, who heavily swearing, just difficult to be around. was transformed into someone who represents God, transformed into a clergy person. And as part of his work as a priest, John wrote over 280 hymns to complement his worship services. So as we think about the story, we see this great transformation. But what we know is that we also receive the same amazing grace. We have been lost, but now we're found. We have been blind, but now we see. We have been through many dangers, toils, and snares, but we also have safely arrived at home as one of God's children. So today I would encourage you to take a moment just to think about all the ways that God's grace has transformed your life. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.